Hello boys and girls and welcome back Pixel Nation. This is Tommy bringing you another video from Hysteria Gaming HD. Today I'd like to begin a discussion detailing my view on how PlayStation 4 could be a make or break key to Sony's survival. Like many of you, I spent 2 hours watching the PlayStation conference stream last night, and you can see in the background some of the game prospects we can expect to see on the PlayStation 4. Some of the featured games that I really liked the look of included Deep Down, Infamous Second Son, Watch Dogs, Killzone Shadow Fall and DRIVECLUB. But I don't really want to go into the conference too much, partly because Sony didn't actually reveal all that much about the system itself, but also because there are many people who are better qualified than I am to discuss the specs Sony are promising, and I'm sure they'll be up on Pixel Enemy soon. You can see on the page that the specs Sony have listed for the PS4, some of which seem very vague to me, but I'm sure they will elaborate closer to the PS4's release date in autumn this year. And yes folks, that is right, we can have a PlayStation 4 in our homes in time for Christmas 2013. What I did want to discuss with you is how important it is for Sony to get this release right. I'd like to detail a small part of Sony's history which I think highlights where they have fallen short previously. Unfortunately, for us fans, Sony appear to have a god complex when it comes to marketing their products, and as a Sony user I think it's sad to see their revenue has been stagnating at the same level for 15 years. Pretty much any profit they have made has been wiped out with the crippling losses they have in other places. Sony's finances are pretty much propped up by its financial lending arm in Asia. Unfortunately, it doesn't make enough to stem the flow of cash that this giant cash cow is hemorrhaging. In the past decade, Sony have seen their market capitalization fall from $100 billion to $18 billion. Mostly due to falling prospects, but also reflecting the grossly overinflated market values we saw during the dot-com years. Thousands of Sony employees have lost their jobs, and with at least 1,000 more losses projected in the next 12 months alone. So in short, getting the marketing solutions surrounding the PlayStation 4 right could be absolutely crucial to their survival in the gaming market. Sony have a long history of betting big on their own products, and when I was a kid, Sony attempted to flex their muscles by launching the Betamax. And they did this because they wanted to control the video market with their own format. But this was a mistake, with the vast majority of film studios backing the VHS format which was being pushed by their rival JVC. Because they failed to get the studios on side, they lost the format war, big time. And by 1988, VHS controlled over 90% of the market, and Sony quietly started making VHS players soon after. We saw the same battle occur in the war for HD disc formats, with them backing the Blu-ray disc, whilst Toshiba and Microsoft backed the HD DVD format. Winning a format war primarily boils down to which side the film studios take. Luckily for Sony, they were able to persuade Fox and several others to back them. But do you know what ultimately led to Sony winning the battle? Neatly tying us back to topic, it was the implementation of the Blu-ray player in all PlayStation 3s that persuaded the big studios like Warner and Universal to pledge allegiance. There was of course a downside to this, and that is that Sony lost approximately $200 per PS3 unit sold, hoping that selling at a loss would see a resurgence of profits selling the Blu-ray movies and games. And if you think sort of adding up these losses, that equated to roughly $3 billion total. So we're likely to see a repeat of this with the PS4, although how much of a loss Sony will take remains to be seen because they didn't give us a price. Anyway, so let me take a second to pull my foot out my arse and explain why this is relevant. The point I've been making with these comparisons is that history has proven that Sony do not like to make the same mistake twice. And herein lies the trouble. Sony were losing this $200, which is roughly about £130 on each console, yet the PS3 on release was still over £400 in the UK. This high price led to Sony coming third in terms of console sales, behind rival Xbox and way behind the relatively inexpensive Nintendo Wii. My opinion is that Sony simply cannot afford to make this mistake again, and so the pricing on PS4 on release will be integral. Lots of people like to mock Nintendo, but they should do so at their peril. Nintendo have never been at the forefront of graphically stunning games. In fact, I can't even think of any Nintendo system for like one decent looking game. But what they focus on 100% is affordable gaming fun. You could go back to Duck Hunt for the NES system, which was my first console, or one of my favourite all-time games, GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64. None of these games set the bar for graphics at the time, but they were pure fun to play. And I think Sony have to consider that. Of course, AAA titles exclusive such as Uncharted and Killzone bring in huge sales, and rightly so because they're excellent games, but sometimes people are just looking for a game to just fuck around on. Now this attitude has led to the Wii selling over 100 million units worldwide. Nintendo are a shining example of how an affordable console can do well, even if they do stay clear of the more hardcore gaming titles such as Battlefield. Sony also missed a trick with the iToy, which they developed for the PlayStation 2. In fairness to them, I don't think they realised the potential they had with it, but unfortunately for them, Nintendo did realise this potential and they capitalised on it in the form of multiple party games, and now motion control gaming has become a huge part of the current market, and it took Microsoft to release the Kinect before Sony finally pulled their fingers out and introduced the PlayStation Move. The PlayStation Network is also possibly the last place on earth I would buy a release title. Why? Because they charge way too much money for them. Sony have to start competing with game sale companies such as Amazon if they want to increase digital sales. And the last thing I wanted to point out is their snail-like pace in latching onto the mobile gaming market. By this I'm referencing the bite-sized games people buy for £1 and yet can happily play hour after hour. Currently there are only about 800 titles available on PS3. If you compare this to the 130,000 games you can find on the Apple iOS platform, you'll understand what I'm getting at. The same can be applied for games found on social media sites such as Facebook also. Fortunately, mobile gaming was one of the big features mentioned during the PS4 conference, and so it's obviously been seen and set by Sony as a market they need to tap into. And they've also mentioned the fantastic news regarding the Gaikai cloud gaming service that they acquired last year. Integration of cloud gaming with the PS4 could be integral to the versatile future of gaming on consoles. Gaikai will give users the ability to stream games to their devices, and this will be available via the PS Store. Whether or not this will be free though remains to be seen. Sony promised PS4 users will be able to try new games for free using the system, and I quote them, "Try for free, buy what you love." It also seems that whilst PS4 won't be backwards compatible, it will be possible via Gaikai to play last-gen games on the PS4. My only reservation with this is the mass marketability of it. The stark truth is we don't all live in huge bandwidth areas, and many people are tied by their ISPs to data restrictions. Essentially it's a huge step in the right direction for Sony, but the ISPs will hold the key to whether Gaikai sees mainstream success in 2013 and beyond. Several other great features revealed have me feeling that perhaps Sony will get it right this time. For one, they have handed the power to game developers when designing the PS4. They have asked the devs what they need to make the greatest games possible with the system. Bear in mind, next-gen consoles will also mean developers can push the boundaries across all platforms, including PC, because no longer will the system limit potential during development. Also, the DualShock 4 was unveiled. Now, whilst the touchscreen and general aesthetics aren't very important or exciting at the moment, they did reveal a share button, which can be used as a feature to record segments of your gameplay and seamlessly upload them in the background to streaming sites like Ustream. Your friends can then comment and offer advice for you. More excitingly, if you're stuck on a particular level, your friends can give you potions or weapons to help. And better yet, they can actually jump in and help you on PSN. Finally, Sony have seen the potential sharing can have on the gaming market. And whilst it may not be the most popular feature, they've also been smart enough to integrate Facebook uploads with the controller also. Sony have realised a social media outlet with 1 billion plus users is too good to ignore. And to top it all off, the DualShock 4 will come with an option of a second peripheral, a dual camera bar that will gauge the exact location of the controller for precise movement-based gaming. So, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the word potential. You can see in the background the facial capture displayed by David Cage from Quantic Dream. He was excited to show us the progression from last generation consoles. Now, I'm a fan of pretty much anything Quantic have done, especially Heavy Rain, and you could hear the enthusiasm from him talking about how realistic features will now be possible. You'll be able to read lifelike expressions from characters' faces and understand their moods based on this. Think LA Noire with a super dose of steroids. I personally cannot wait for what Quantic dream up next. But potential doesn't end there. There were many games not even mentioned at the conference. Can you imagine the potential of Uncharted 4, and the potential we could see with Battlefield 4 also? I'm extremely excited to see what they manage to harness from the PlayStation's new power. To be honest with you, the conference has calmed a lot of my fears, but I remember feeling the same way when PS3 was announced. The ball is basically in Sony's court, but remember that we're the players within. They have to get the PS4 launch price right, and they need to at least attempt to bridge the gap between PC and console, even if this is just the ability to game at 60 frames per second and play in 1080p. And in my opinion, they have to give multiplayer games the options to house way more than 24-player servers. If they couple this with the inclusion of mobile gaming, cloud gaming services, and new motion technology, I really think Sony can turn their fortunes around. As someone who's had all their systems since PS1, I wish them luck and really hope they do. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you've made it this far, then congratulations. I hope I didn't go on too much. I'd like to know your thoughts on everything we've mentioned here. What did you make of the conference, and will you be getting the PS4, or perhaps wait until the price drops 6 months after release? Let me know below. Don't forget to leave a rating so I know if I'm getting right or wrong. And don't forget to stay classy, YouTube. This has been Hysteria Gaming, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.